I also wanted to draw your attention towards what's happening in the capital markets at the moment, right? Do you see any of these new big tech companies, the likes of Zomato, Nykaa, Paytm, etc., being the next TCS or Infosys?
Well, I am first an Indian citizen and then a tech entrepreneur. So therefore, I would want India to make tremendous progress, not just in IT, but in every sector. Now, the companies that you spoke about, they're all promising startups. I want them to succeed. I want them to become bigger than Infosys and perhaps TCS. And that will be good for the country, because as long as they can create productive jobs for youngsters, as long as they can create jobs which have higher disposable income for youngsters, I think it is good for the country. Therefore, I wish these companies my best. I want them to become much bigger than Infosys. That's the only way country can grow.
Well, absolutely. So being optimistic there, but I was reading one of your earlier speeches and there was a very interesting quote that really caught my attention regarding IPOs, and it was how entrepreneurship is all about deferred gratification. Now, with what's happening in the capital market, do you think the entrepreneurs these days are looking at IPOs as surrogates to funding and forms of instant gratification versus the deferred gratification that they should really look for?
Well, I wouldn't blame the young entrepreneurs. I would blame the older people, because it is the job of the older people, it's the job of the veterans, it's the job of seasoned venture capitalists to advise the youngsters that deferred gratification will result in much bigger wealth for those people. That's exactly what happened in Infosys. In the 80s, there were at least a couple of my colleagues who were somewhat unhappy, in 90s rather, that we had not seen any wealth out of Infosys. But then I advised them, I said, look, if you make sacrifice in the short and medium term, you will reap the benefit many times more than otherwise. So I would not blame the youngsters. I would rather request the veterans in the field, venture capitalists, to advise them on this. That's what I would say.
Fair point taken, because I also wanted to talk about how the last 10 years have been great for Indian startups, right? Yeah. There was abundant liquidity, the policy action was positive, but now the tide seems to be turning a tad bit with the funding winter setting in, liquidity becoming scarce, etc. Do you see any kind of moderation in Indian startups, and would you believe this would separate the wheat from the chaff per se?
As I said before, this is all part of business cycle. There was a time when we had boom time in venture capital availability. Now that has become much more difficult. This expected. However, if our entrepreneurs focus on creating a differentiated business value proposition vis-a-vis their competitors, and they are able to communicate well to the VCs, I don't think money would become the problem. However, in these difficult times, they have to realize two important things. One, they have to estimate the market very carefully. Unfortunately, there is no well-established company in India which can estimate the market opportunity. That's a big problem in India. Therefore, entrepreneurs tend to do a not so quality estimation, and that results in overestimation. They should avoid that overestimation. They should go with a with a realistic estimation, and consequently their expenses should be curtailed, and ideally they should focus on becoming positive in terms of cash flows as early as possible. I understand it takes time, however, they should try. If we did all of that, I don't think there'll be any problem.
Just coming back to the point that you were talking about at Infosys itself, how in the 90s there was this lack of gratification per se, but then there were many of these offers made to you at that time when people were willing to buy you out for millions of dollars. At that time, how difficult was the decision for you? And in your own decision making, what role does gut play versus logic?
No, I used to get a very good salary when I was heading the software group at PCS. So I didn't do this for money. I took 1/10 the salary when Infosys was founded, while I gave 20% more to all my younger co-founders. So money was never a part of our calculations, and I'm very, very grateful to my wife for that way of living our life. So I was not very much after encashing little money. I wanted to create a company that would be highly respected, that would be known throughout India, that will be known at least in the developed world as a company that has demonstrated good governance and all of that. So I could convince my younger colleagues that they should demonstrate their commitment to deferred gratification by not wanting to accept this offer. And they were all very, very good people, very, very understanding youngsters, and they all accepted. That's how we went forward.
So then I'm intrigued to know, what made you then go for the IPO at that point? What was that decision-making marker?
Well, there were a lot of youngsters to whom we had given in the initial round of stock option plan. Later on, we did a bigger one in 1994. And number two, we felt that the true worth of a company is what is determined by the market. The true value of the company is what is determined by the market. We just wanted to conduct an experiment where we would know whether our assumptions of Infosys would be agreed to by the outside investors or not. And that really was the initial
thought.
thinking.